So basically the point of these videos is to basically summarize a certain book that I'm reading. It's called Achu, and here it's called Achu, right? And it's actually by news reporter, so there is some stuff about it that's like quite interesting. She does try to make it a lot easier to read, but here I'm trying to, kind of separate towards the facts and try to expand on that certain part about it. So let's go. Excuse me. Yeah. I'm just getting better from my own cold. So this is it's kind of funny. So basically in this chapter, it's one of the last it's basically the last chapter, but it's really big, so I don't think I'll cover all of it today. And so basically, it goes through what the experts deem is the experts deem what is what experts deem is like the most the best like sort of like what are the best remedies to do for the common cold. And so one of them, let's see if it focuses, Jack Waltney. Basically what he proposed is he proposes that well, first you want to catch the cold in its very first best thing you want to do is catch the cold when it's very new, as soon as possible. And so in the first 3 days of it, take those pain relieving medicines because you want to flush it out as much as possible. And then next, what you want to do is you want to what so says is you want to keep trying to get rid of the mucus and keep the air passageway open, because during a cold, that's one of the most annoying things. It's going to be your congestion. It's going to be it's going to be basically the congestion and the running nose. So yeah, that's going to be a pain. So basically what you want to do is first take most of your medications for that, then take any medication just for the nasal thing. That's what Jack Waltney says. And normally what he does is he takes two single ingredient medications once every 12 hours to do so. And so basically for this he says, okay, for the cough and the sore throat, he'll take ibuprofen or naproxen. And so basically, if you don't know, well, ibuprofen and naproxen are both over-the-counter drugs. And if you have a runny nose and you keep sneezing, that's when you would take antihistamines. Now, I'm not sure if I went over this in a video before, but I will go through it right now. Basically, an antihistamine, there are two kinds, and so the first generation one, it's a little, they're a little bit older. Those are typically, Dendril, chlorotrimton, these kind of ones. And the thing about these is they do make you a little bit drowsy. And so for the second generation ones, they try to make them a little bit better, so they don't make you sleepy, like Claritin and Allegra. But the thing about these is they don't actually work on the common cold. So if you are going to take antihistamines, do make sure it's the first generation, and they will be drowsy. So yeah. For our next expert, Ron Turner. And so most of these experts, or all of them, they specialize in the field of the common cold. And basically the reporter asked, like, what would you do if you had the common cold, basically. And so what Ron Turner, he would typically take a topical nasal decongestant. And so those are typically they're nasal sprays typically, and those are the ones to decongest your nose. And he does speculate that chicken soup probably does help. Because it's a lot of liquid. It's hot, so it can loosen up the phlegm. He says, okay, it could probably help with the common cold, but typically nobody wants to make it for him and his family, and it's too much trouble to do it for himself. So that's a little bit sad. And just like Dr. Gwaltney, he does use antihistamines, first generation, right before bed, because they do make you drowsy. And so besides this, most of the other ones were not that specific, except one of them did say take paracetamol, and the other one said NSAID is basically ibuprofen and aspirin before bed. And so that's what ibuprofen, aspirin, acetaminophen, those kind are the ones that are NSAIDs. And yeah, so she typically said take them before bed. But basically, the thing that they all agreed on is they agree on, the kind of medications that says, oh yeah, I'll help you with your nasal congestion, I'll help you with your cough, I'll help you with all your symptoms. Basically, they do speculate that they typically don't work on most, based on a lot of research, they don't typically work. And another thing that they did agree on was that the more ingredients you take for the common cold equals a higher risks of side effects. And sometimes the side effects are so dangerous they can lead to death. And that is not a joke. That is quite real. And that is quite scary. And also for infants, children under the age of 6 should not typically be taking, common cold medicine. It's not really good for them because the side effects are kind of bad for them. And I mean, like everyone, that's kind of bad, but their bodies can't deal with it. Their bodies are still growing. Their immune system is still learning. And I mean, probably the best thing to do is just let the child, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say suffer, but I mean, let your kid, get used to it, I guess. I mean, just like, let your immune system grow, because that's really the only way your immune system can learn is if it fights the virus by itself. If you're constantly giving medication, your body's not going to learn from that. So, yeah, and plus, like I said, some of them can be death. It's higher chance if they're younger because, their body is not used to it. So if it's like, one of the side effects is like, speeding up heart rhythm. I mean, if you have heart problems, it's probably not a good idea to take it, especially with an infant. If an infant has like heart problems, I mean, that would most certainly probably much higher risk of death. So yeah. And so now this chapter is, like I said before, it's really big. And so another thing that they did do is they did state, what are the best general medications per symptom. And so basically these aren't the kind of medications you do to get rid of the virus. They're just, symptom relieving, basically. And so if you have a sore throat, I do this actually myself as well. Basically half a teaspoon of salt, and you mix it in with some lukewarm water, and you kind of gargle that down, and you gargle that down in your throat. And so basically what's supposed to happen is the salt water is supposed to use osmosis to all the sore parts. It's supposed to take out the fluids of the sore parts in your throat. And so basically it'll be less clenched in your throat, and so it'll feel better. That's typically what it's supposed to do. But yeah, I mean, when I first did it, I put way more salt than half a teaspoon per 8 ounce, and that just tastes awful. It doesn't really do much more than the half teaspoon. Next, we do have headaches or a mild fever. And so basically you would take ibuprofen, and if you don't know, ibuprofen typically does help you. It is just a medication specifically for headaches and stuff like that, but you should probably eat before it, because there's a risk of it giving a hole in your stomach. And so as long as you eat, you had a meal way before then, so there's still food in your stomach, the ibuprofen won't dissolve your stomach, because it's supposed to help your head, and you wouldn't want problems with your stomach after. And then aspirin and acetaminophen. I can't pick it up. Acetaminophen, basically. And so yeah, they're basically the same things. And those, they don't really help with. They do also help with the headache. It's still pretty good, and also they do help a little bit better with the fevers too, which is something I don't think ibuprofen does as well. But they are known for giving you more mucus in your nose, and so that's not. That's just up to you if you want to take that. If you're willing to, get some more nasal problems. But for kids under 6, it's one of the things that they said is do not take aspirin, because there's a risk of Raynaud's syndrome. And like I said, before, if you do make kids take, medications when they're 6. Typically not a good idea. Or else, they end up getting, problems worse than the common cold. And, Reye syndrome is an example of that. And so acetaminophen is probably the best one for kids as long as you give them in doses of, children. So if the recommended is 2, give them 1. Don't give them 2 all the way. Or ibuprofen. Ibuprofen's okay. Again, it can get you a hole in your stomach. So just as long as you eat and, if you're a kid, most likely you won't be very hungry if you have the common cold or something like that. So I'm not sure if you would want to take ibuprofen. I know I wouldn't when I was younger. And last but not least in this section is stuffy nose. And so basically you would want to take nasal decongestants. But they work faster than the oral ones. So basically, like I said, the ones that you spray up your nose, they're typically better. For zinc, there's a way to get zinc that's supposed to suppress the common cold. I didn't write it here, but I'll talk about it real quick. There is a nasal spray of zinc, and then there's just an oral, pill. The pills are probably better because the studies have shown, if you use a spray, you can, especially with children, there's a high risk of, permanently damaging your sense of smell. And so that's probably not something you'd want. Also, oxymetazoline or xylometazoline. Basically, these are a little bit better for stuffy noses. I mean, those are examples of the nasal spray. And basically, if one important thing that I didn't know, basically if it lasts longer than 2 days or few days, switch to Sudafed, an oral one. Sudafed is one of the examples of the oral one, which are a little bit better, and they're also a little bit better for children. The oral ones are a little bit better for children because the nasal one, like I said, they can, depending on which one, even though they work faster though, so it's up to you for which trade-off. But yeah, and that's basically it for this video. I hope you did like it. It was a little bit quick, but this is a very big chapter. It's it's 3 times or 2 times the amount of a normal chapter, so I'll do another video to cover this, okay? And I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.